Welcome to the Sales Influence Podcast, where we talk about finding the why and how people buy. I'm your host, Victor Antonio. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for lending me those ears. And if you're watching me on YouTube or any video platform, thank you for lending me those eyeballs. I have with me the great Mark Hunter, also known as Mark the Sales Hunter. Mark, welcome to the Sales Influence Podcast.
Hey, welcome to the show. I don't have a cup of coffee in front of me, but you know what? With an intro like that, I don't need it because we are both going to rev it up here today.
Dude, we are going to go. Mark, how did we meet, by the way? I forgot.
You know what? We've known each other for years, but I think we met by way of Gerhard Schwantner, I have a feeling. I don't know. Somewhere along the line, we just got talking.
Yeah.
And, we didn't actually physically meet until you showed up at an outbound event we were doing a few years ago. And then, of course, you joined us the year after that. So, and you're part of the team. So, hey,
yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I remember I showed up. I wanted to meet you guys personally because Jeb Blunt, Anthony, I had not met either. So it was really at Mike Weinberg. It was really good to go there early. I just really wanted to stop by and say hi.
Oh, no, you can stop by and say hi anytime.
Thank you, Matt. That's a cool event. By the way, if you don't know about Outbound, go to, what is it, outbound.com or outboundconference.com?
Outboundconference.com.
Yep. We got so we're set for May, correct?
Set for May of 21. And I guess we have an appointment with coronavirus, but that will work itself out. So,
Yeah. Hopefully we'll work it. I think we're going to do a blend of that. So I'm looking forward to that event. Yeah. We got a lot of great speakers again, so you have to be there. But I want to talk about Mark Hunter. Mark, how did you get into sales? I mean, when did you start? When did you have your sales epiphany?
Well, I think to a certain degree, I had sales in my blood as a little kid, the Kool-Aid stands and so forth. But I really didn't get into sales until the police department changed my direction.
By the way, pause there. By the way, pause there. Tell me that isn't a great teaser right there. Tell me that was not a great teaser. He just set that up. Go ahead, Mark. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead. That's a great teaser.
And I talked about it in my book, A Mind for Sales, because I went to college to get a degree in marketing. And, because that was a kind of a cool degree to get back then and so forth. And what happened was I had a few too many incidents with the police department, namely speeding tickets. And nobody was hurt, nobody was harmed, et cetera, et cetera. But I got too many speeding tickets my senior year of college, which meant I couldn't afford car insurance. It was either you can afford car insurance or you can afford a place to live. Right. So what happened was I had to find a job that supplied me with a company car. That's how I wound up in sales. Is that
your motivation? No,
that is motivation.
I've heard different stories of how people got in sales. That does not sound strange at all. So you needed a car, so you started selling. So what was the first job? What was the actual product or service you were selling?
Sides of beef. I said it right there. Sides of beef. That's what I was selling. Yeah. But you know what? I can't remember if it was a Buick or a Pontiac, but it was a white car. And that's all I needed, man. You know what? I was so good. I was so good at that job. I got fired from it.
Go on.
Yes, I did. I got fired from that job. I had no clue what I was doing. So it's okay. I got a different job.
Why'd you get fired, by the way? Why'd you get fired?
Actually, what had happened was it was a family-owned company, and one of the kids wanted my job. So, it was, was I performing? No, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no clue what I was doing. So anyway, so that's
in that job. Not to reflect on that one, but I think it's always interesting, right? Your original contact with sales or experience with sales really starts to form you in many ways. Looking back at that job, putting nepotism aside, what would you have done differently?
Well, because I was approaching it totally wrong. I thought what I was doing was selling sides of beef. And no, what I was really doing was I was helping restaurants succeed. I was helping stores succeed. My focus was totally on my product. My focus wasn't on the outcome of how I was going to help the customer. And it took me a couple of jobs for that to for that light bulb to go off, to realize, this is the why. You start off your podcast, you start off your shows talking about the why. The why is, why do we do what we do? It's to help other people. You see, I had this view that the customer was kind of like a bowling pin. my objective was just to knock them down as quickly as possible, take their money and run and go to the next set of bowling pins. And that's not exactly the way you build a sustainable business. It just doesn't work that way.
It's funny how a lot of people who want to get into sales, you get the question, I'm sure, a lot because, you do a lot of, training. And I'm always asked the question, Victor, how can I get better at sales? And I always say, well, look at it from the customer's point of view. Be empathetic first. And I think, that one and, the other question I hate getting is Victor, how can I be authentic? Makes me laugh inside because I'm like, don't be inauthentic. There you go. There's your answer. As you moved on to your second job, what was your second job in selling?
My second job was with Pillsbury. No, I was not the Pillsbury Doughboy. Sorry, you can put that joke aside. But basically what I had a territory that consisted of Southern Oregon, Eastern Oregon. It was a massive territory. And I was selling Pillsbury products to grocery stores, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you know what's funny? I got fired from that job too. Oh, hey, dude, how's that? Okay,
two for two.
Now, I get back. What happened was the company was downsizing. I mean, yeah, my numbers were doing pretty good, but the company was downsizing, so they eliminated the whole sales force.
Now, what was your big takeaway with the Pillsbury company?
Well, the Pillsbury was where it began. Then I began really understanding time management because I had such a massive territory. And again, I talk about it in my book. I had a territory that was huge in terms of square miles and the amount of time I spent driving. So I really learned time management. How do you organize your day? How do you optimize where you're going to spend your time? That has stuck with me.
Give me one technique or strategy that you use to manage your time. Help out the listeners or the viewers.
Well, yeah. Well, one of the whole things is you have to take a look. In fact, this morning, I mean, I'm looking at the outcomes I expect, and I go, what is the item that's going to achieve the highest dollar revenue, the most potential for my business? That's going to be my focus for the day. And that's a question you have to ask yourself each day because it's easy for us to get, let me check email. And 2 hours later, you're still digging through email or you're responding to this, you're responding to that. And you go, no, your focus is what is the highest revenue activity? And, you and I are in the same business. We're kind of solopreneurs. And so you got to sit there and say, what's your focus? And you
so for you this morning, let's make this concrete so people can really. So this morning, what was you got your outcome? Right. Only if you could share the information. What was your? Most people use high leverage activity. You use high revenue activity, which I kind of like actually. What was like your outcome that you said, I need to get this done because this is the activity. This is the activity I need to do in order to get that done. What was that?
Well, yeah, because I have a client project that I'm working on that is going very well. But I want to accelerate it even more because I want to make sure that we can wrap this up before the end of the year. There's a lot of deliverables in it. And I am sitting there saying, wait a minute. Now, I can just carry on and keep going. No, let's focus some stuff. There were some other lower revenue activities that, you know what? Yeah, they're on the priority list. They're on out. But you know what? I'm going to move them back. I'll get to them later on today. But my first thing after dealing with Victor Antonio is zeroing in on that.
I love that. Do you remember the first time I was impacted by sequence? What you do first versus what you do second was that old analogy with the big bowl. Remember the bowl with the rocks?
Yes, and right.
That whole thing. Okay, so walk people. By the way, walk people through that in case they don't know what it is.
Well, if you don't know, in the book, Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He talks about having the jar. And you have big rocks that you put in, and then you have smaller rocks, and you have sand. And what happens is the only way you can get all this stuff in the jar is if you put the rocks in first. You've got to put the big stuff in first because then all the pebbles, all the sand will fill in around it. And that's a concept that, unfortunately, too many salespeople allow email to move them in a different direction or social media to move them in a different direction.
Yeah, the way it was demonstrated to me, it was like, the speaker got on stage and says, all right, puts the rocks in. Does anything else fit? And remember, the audience are like, I don't know. Then he puts them in some like kind of bigger stones, but not boulders, right? And then he puts in, is that it? Do you think anything else will fit? Then he did the actual rocks, like pebbles, right? And then he says, is that it? He goes, and then he threw in sand, right? So it fell into crevices. And he goes, is that it? And everybody's like, okay, I think that's it. Then he put in water. And he totally filled the whole thing up. And that visual stuck with me, And so, when you look at visuals like that, do any visuals come to your mind that you use in your sales process that when you use that visual, people go, oh, I get it. Do you have anything like that?
Well, yeah, the visual I like to use is 2x4. No, don't take a 2x4 to your head. I'm not recommending that to anybody. But look at your day as if it's a 2x4. The idea being is that you take your day and you break it into 4 2-hour segments. And you hold yourself accountable for each 2-hour segment. So the visual I create is, what's my 2x4 today? What's my 2x? I know if I spend 2 hours on this high revenue project I'm working on today, I will nail it. I'll be good. And you know what? I'll feel much better when I move on to my next one. But break it down. Now, if you're really ADD, then you go, okay, I'm going to do a 1x8 or a 1x12. You're going to break into 12 1-hour segments. But that's up to you. That's up to you to choose.
I was going to ask you, because we're going to get to your book, Mind for Sales. I'm moving in a direction here because I'm trying to pull some stuff out of you. I'm going to play devil's advocate right now with you, okay? And I'm going to say, Mark, but that deal you're working on, there's so many deliverables that you have to deliver, let's say by mid-December. How do you know you're going to win it? I mean, is it worth investing your time? Maybe it's going to be a waste of time. What would you say to somebody who has that mindset?
Well, the mindset is I don't go into anything losing it. Now, on this particular project, we're engaged. We have everything rolling in. I'm just trying to make sure we accelerate all the revenue. We accelerate everything. You can't go into any project. Thinking, oh, I'm not going to get this. If you do, that's how you wind up losing. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't care what team you are. You don't take the field saying we're going to lose. You take the field assuming you're going to win. And just change it. First of all, do customers want to work with losers? No. Come on. They want to work with winners. So I treat every prospect. In fact, it's funny. I'll be making some calls this afternoon, some sales calls this afternoon, following up on some things. I treat every prospect as if they're a customer. You treat them as if you're a customer. And it just changes your mindset. It changes everything.
And I think, a lot of people have call reluctance, or in this case, deal reluctance. It's almost like they talk themselves out of a deal sometimes. Like even before they get on the phone, they talk themselves out of a deal. So before we get into your book, Mind for Sales, so now you've just left the Pillsbury company. First, side of beef, you learned how to empathize with your clients. And number 2, you went to Pillsbury. Now we learned some time management skills. Where do we go from? You've been fired twice. Please don't tell me you got fired 3 times. Where'd you go next?
No, I didn't, but I thought I was. I went to a company that what is now is called Heinz Kraft. I was at that time, it was General Foods, Kraft. And I spent 12 years with them. Had an absolutely unbelievable run at that career, managing massive organizations, managing the West Coast, managing large areas of business.
So wait a minute. How did you go from sales, getting fired twice, to managing large sales force? Fill that gap in.
Because I'm good. I can talk my way in. I can talk my way in. No, you know what though? We learn from our mistakes. We learn. The light bulb was kicking. The light bulb was getting brighter. I knew I could do this. And sometimes what happens is the ability to lead salespeople, the ability to lead an organization, it really is developed through the empathy that you have. And if you've walked in those shoes, you understand the challenges those people have faced. One of the easiest things for me to do, this is really scary, is to actually fire somebody. Because unfortunately, I've been terminated. And over the years, I've had to fire so many people. But you know what's interesting? Every time I got fired, I landed on my feet. I turned out better. See,
right.
And so many managers, I was dealing with a VP of sales yesterday, and he was struggling with terminating a couple of key managers here. And I said, don't put this off any longer. The sooner you do it, the sooner they move on to better things, and the better off you are. So, I mean,
I love that. By the way, we all know, right? Hire slow, fire fast. But
Without a doubt.
you didn't answer my question. So you just left Pillsbury,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You go to Heinz Kraft.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're coming in as a salesperson at a sales level, right?
Yep.
Walk me through, because there's that transition, right, to management.
Right.
What did you do differently? What did you start doing there that you hadn't done that eventually got you promoted?
Well, over a period of 12 years, we moved about 8 times around the country and so forth. What I learned was, don't try to master every element of your job at one time. Master one small segment of it. Here's the whole thing. Too many people go into a job, they go into a situation, and what they do is they try to get their arms wrapped around everything, and you can't. You just can't. So what I learned was, I said, I'm going to focus in on this very specific customer, and I'm going to nail this customer. And this may take me a month. Then I'm going to move on to the next customer. I move on, and you work your way through because here's the whole thing.
But wait a minute, because you're getting some good here. I don't want to skip the good stuff. This is like, here's what I've learned. A lot of people just skip over the stuff because they know it so well.
Yeah.
But the listeners going, how? But how?
Right. Okay. Okay.
So you got probably a territory with a portfolio of potential customers, correct?
Right.
And so you then decided, and I'm putting words in your mouth and you adjust me. Then you decide, so you know what? If I can nail these 5 or 10 clients, really get close to them and understand them, I know that I can make this territory work. Is that a fair statement?
That's exactly. And then what I did was I say, okay, these are the accounts that I'm going to really dial down on. But hold it. I'm going to really dial down on this one first. I want to learn every key player in that organization. I want to learn their business objectives. I want to learn their strategies. I want them to see me as a strategic expert. I want them to see me as a partner they have to have. Now, what's interesting is when you drill down on that. Now, I'm not ignoring the others, but I'm just spending a whole lot more time with that one. What does it do? It increases your level of confidence, increases your level of knowledge, and you get insights that go way beyond. So boom, I master that one. Then I say, now I can take that and I can do it with this one. And I do it. And ultimately what happens is you begin picking up speed, because now what you're able to do is you're able to get in deeper and really penetrate faster because of all this knowledge, all this experience, all this confidence that you're bringing in from preceding accounts. And so I love that. Strongly suggest take a very focused approach. Really, if you think about it, it's the 80-20 rule on steroids, because you're taking 80-20 and then you're doing it again and you're doing it again.
What I love about what you just said, and again, for us, it's intuitively obvious because we've been through it. But people who are starting out in sales go, I don't get it. When you went to this third company, Heinz Kraft, it's interesting how you used empathy, which you learned on the first job, right? Because now you want to understand the customer's business, like really dig deep, as you say, right? Then, two, you learned at the other company, second company, Pillsbury, time management. And then you use that to prioritize your accounts in Heinz Kraft. But what I love what you said is that you dig in deep, you understand your customer, you understand their business problems, and then you said something real subtle but very powerful. That builds your confidence.
Bingo.
And then that accumulation effect starts to really kick in, which is you as you say, you begin to take your experience to the next company and you feel that momentum.
And what's interesting is now I can pick up the phone, I can call people much further up the food chain, and I got no problems with it. I can have a conversation with them. And because I could bring them insights, they'll have a meeting with me. You see, what happens is it moves me. I'm no longer a vendor. I'm the strategic partner that they want to work with.
What if I push back on you, Mark? Let me push back a little bit. And because I'm being the pessimist or the skeptic right now, listening, going, yeah, but Mark, you know what? Today it's very difficult to understand the company's business. Sometimes it's hard to meet with people, and sometimes it's hard to understand, the business really. So I find that impossible.
It's easier than ever now. I was doing this back before the internet, back before all this other stuff. I mean, I had to physically pick up the excuse me. We won't go into this age business. We will leave that alone. Oh, by the way, is that an AARP envelope on your desk? No. Okay, no. Anyway, but it's easier today because of social media, because of the internet, all this sort of stuff. There is no reason for any salesperson not to be going deeper with their accounts than ever before. There is no reason.
I agree.
I agree. We can't live in a superficial. If you want to live in a superficial sales world, you will be replaced by Amazon.
Yeah. By the way, that's a great way of putting it. I mean, you and I get these, I'm going to call them stupid emails or messages. Let's say on LinkedIn, where they don't even look. I had one again. The most popular one I get is, Victor, came across your profile. Would really love to talk to you about, you and your business. Would love to learn more about your business. I'm like, well, read the damn profile. I got a whole website around what I do. It's so lazy, Mark. Salespeople are so lazy. They're going for quantity, not quality. What do you say?
I totally agree. This is where, I would much rather have, my whole objective is I want to be able to qualify prospects quickly. And oh, by the way, they're a suspect until you're in the right to be a prospect. My whole goal is really to have fewer prospects, but ones I can go deeper with. That's how I create real value. Now, it's funny. I was with an organization a week ago, an industrial sales team, actually doing a live in-person engagement, and it was absolutely outstanding. And as I shared that, I was looking right at the VP of sales and the CEO who happened to be in the room. And man, they were like, uh-oh, you just said something we can't do. Well, then I walk them through and they go, oh, that makes all the sense in the world. That makes all the sense in the world, right? Because here's the whole thing. If all I have is a superficial relationship, it is going to be sold on price, if it's going to be sold at all. And I'm going to wind up maybe getting a single sale, but I'll never create a customer. You see, a single sale does not create a customer. A relationship creates a customer. Because the only good sale is one that leads to the next sale.
By the way, I agree with you 100%, and I would add a little flavor on that. You tell me if you agree. We often think that relationship is about, hey, how you doing? Are those your kids? Is that your hobby? That's not a relationship. You're trying to build some rapport. I get it, but you're wasting their time. I think as a relationship is a result of a great, insightful conversation with the salesperson.
That is without a doubt. And here's the mark of a relationship is, will the other person share with you proprietary information that's not known publicly? Okay? Because think about this. They're not going to do that unless they have a level of confidence with you. A relationship is one where they ask you questions that go beyond what you do, what you sell, because again, they value your intellect. A relationship is one where they introduce you to other people. Why? Because they value your network. Think about what I just said there. Those are three powerful strategies that you need to be doing. Anybody listening, anybody watching this needs to be doing to say, hey, do I have relationships at that level? Or are they just, hey, how are your kids today?
Right. Very shallow. Hey, Mark, what do you think, in your book, maybe it was in your book, A Mind for Sales, but before we get into the book, what do you think is your sales superpower? I know it sounds like a corny question, but here's what I mean by it. There's something that you're very good at, some aspect of selling that you're very good at that, say, Victor, I do this well. And because I do this well, it ripples into other things. That's what I mean by your sales superpower. And more like, what is that you think you do well that really helps you?
I think it's just my infectious attitude and energy I take to every conversation. Okay. That's it. That's all it is. And I hate to say that because I shouldn't have to say it. I would hope that people kind of see it in kind of how I work, how I operate. But I believe that my infectious personality, engaging, brings people into the conversation. And when you're in the conversation, it's amazing how much more you share. It's amazing how much more. Because at the end of the day, what we have to be doing is we have to sit there and say, how do we uncover the real needs? I always say, I got to go 3 levels deep with any conversation. The initial comment that a suspect, not a prospect, a suspect will share with you, you can throw that information away. I gotta ask a question that probes down deeper. Okay, so that's my first level. They share with me something, it's great. Then I gotta probe that down even further. And then I've got to check that by going even deeper. I gotta get 3 levels deep. This is how I really understand what my needs are. And oh, by the way, many times the customer doesn't even know what their needs are until you start asking the questions, creating the conversation. And then they begin to paint this picture. They go, oh, wow, I do need this. Wow, this would work. But it's and then when the customer leads the discussion, this is the thing. People always say, "Oh, salesperson's got to lead the discussion." I don't think so. The confident salesperson is allows the customer to kind of steer, so to speak. The salesperson will bring it back around. They'll bring it back around. But I don't know.
They got it.
Yeah.
Well, I like what you said. So peeling back the layers of what you just said for your sales superpower, because it's really always an aggregation of skills. And so the first one is obviously that energy you bring, right? That enthusiasm. Yeah. Because by the way, I've known you long enough where it's not fake enthusiasm. You're like the glass half full guy.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
You could walk into a room and they're like, I don't know if we could do that. You're like, what do you mean we can't do that? Of course we can do that. And then you're going to show them how to do it. The second thing you said is that you have great questioning skills because you don't mind doing the whole inception thing and going 3 levels deep, right? To figure out what is it. And it's the ability to ask those quality questions. You also said it's the quality of the conversations, right? Because it's not an interrogation, it's a conversation. And then the last part I thought was interesting is that you just got to shut up and listen sometimes and let them do all the talking because they'll tell you what you want if you just ask great questions. And so this pivots to, the opposite of the question about superpowers. Why do you think salespeople fail? I mean, it could be for the exact same reasons we've just talked about why people succeed or yourself. But you've surveyed, you went in a leadership position over at Heinz.
Yeah.
Why do some people just not get it, not make it in sales?
Because they're not willing to make the commitment and stay focused long enough. This is one of the biggest challenges is a squirrel. Hey, people don't stay focused. Sales, if sales was easy, it wouldn't pay as well as it does. Right? I mean, that's a pretty basic.
By the way, it kills me all the time when people say, sales is hard. Well, yeah, of course it's hard. If it was easy, you wouldn't have a job.
Yeah, that's exactly the piece. So, but what you have to be able to stay in the game. And unfortunately, we as a society are soft. We hear the word no. Oh no, I'm scared. I'm scared. And hold it. I come back to this whole piece. If you have the ability to help somebody, it is your responsibility to get in front of them. And if that means disturbing them, that means disturbing them. But if you have the ability to help them, you need to do that. Do it.
I agree. I think sometimes salespeople don't know. No, I don't think. I know that the majority of salespeople don't understand or believe in the value of what they're selling. Because if you believe in the value of what you're selling, you're going to say, you need to listen to me. I got something good for you, right? But you said something interesting that you need to stay in the game. So let's talk about your book, A Mind for Sales. How do you as a salesperson, you've thrown a lot of stuff on here on this podcast already, but how do you stay in the game? Sales are not going right. Give me some strategies and maybe some tactics that I can use because things aren't going my way, Mark. I just lost a deal here. My boss wants me to do more, gave me bigger territory. Help me out, Mark.
First thing I want you to do is I want you to take a piece of paper and I want you to make 2 columns. On the left-hand side, I want you to write down all of the customers that you've had the privilege to sell to. And what I want you on the right-hand side, I don't want you to write down what you sold them, but I want you to write down the outcome that you helped them achieve. What was the outcome that you helped them achieve? You write that down. You get done with that list and you give yourself a big hug. You go, I'm beautiful. I'm wonderful. That is what you are selling. That's what you're doing. You see, people get hung up. Well, if we would just lower our price or we just had a decent product, it's not the product. It's the outcome you create. Please, people. So,
by the way, that's a great exercise. By the way, so let's peel it back. And you highlight this in the book, right?
I highlight this in the book, and I say, right. and you keep that right by your phone. You keep that right by your computer because there are times during the day that you go, oh, I just got rejected. Look at that list. Wow.
Right, and then when you look at the list, here's what I think is cool. When I first saw this, you look at the outcome, right? And some people just put a generic outcome, help them increase revenue, reduce costs. Yeah, you know where I'm going already. Why don't you finish my thought process?
Well, it's getting very specific. How did they reduce? Oh, because they were able to increase revenue, because they were able to do this more efficiently. They were able to reduce. You got to get very, very granular. And you know what this does? This now begins to help you understand, that's interesting. If I did that for one customer, I bet I could do that for somebody else. And it begins to really help you paint the picture of the questions that you need to be asking. And it's amazing how when you start kind of backwards, the outcome, and you work wow. It's amazing.
It's like you reverse engineer everything. And basically, once you know what the outcome is, you can generate the questions at the beginning. But I want to dig just one more layer on this because this is really good. As you're highlighting, when you look at the outcome, I helped them increase revenue. Let's you and I walk to a hypothetical company we just helped. We just sold the ABC company some software product, right? So let's you and I just kind of hypothetically think out loud. How did we help them? I'll go first and you go second. We'll trade. We helped them increase revenue. What else?
Because they were able to close 2 additional deals with 3 additional customers.
Right. So, and because they closed 2 additional deals with 3 additional customers, what does that mean to their bottom line and their market share?
They were able to now create a deeper relationship, which will allow them to expand into a new channel.
And then I would also say, by the way, the fact that we sold means our company is more stable. Their company is more stable because they were to sell more effectively. Because they're more stable, they're going to keep more people employed. In fact, hire more people. So we're now adding to the economy through the help our product that helped the company sell more. I mean, you could really go into this.
Doesn't that get you excited? I mean, as you go through this exercise, it starts to get you jazzed. And I don't know how you sell 2 additional deals to 3 additional customers. I don't know if you caught that, but anyway, it's okay. Don't worry about it.
I knew what you meant. But the thing is, if you don't know what the outcome is, or if you have a very shallow view of what the outcome is, we just help them increase revenue or reduce costs. You can say, well, what did that cost reduction allow you to do? And you ask the customer this. Well, this allowed us to hire more people, buy more capital assets, do all this, and now we can do this. We ramped up our production, does this. And as you pointed out, Mark, that's the stuff you take with you to your next sales call.
That is exactly. I'll give you an example. I was working with a company yesterday. It's a consulting client I have. It's a smaller consulting client. And working with the VP of sales, he's presenting today to the CEO, the business plan and the board. And one of the things he brought me in for a consulting fee is I showed him a way that he's going to be able to, with the same headcount, reallocate his salespeople and really develop a new channel. Now, that's a huge outcome that I was able to create for him based off of my consulting. Was he buying consulting? No, he was buying an outcome. Oh, by the way, he gets into a new channel. He's able to develop X amount of business next year. Does that increase my value? Sure, it increases my value.
Right. But it also increases, obviously, the company's value. But understanding that whole accumulation, it's a ripple effect. Your outcome column is really an outcome ripple effect. You got the outcome. There might be even a third one. By the way, what are the derivatives of that outcome?
Oh yeah. And in my book, I talk about this where I walk through several examples of companies that I've had the privilege to work with. And when you go through and the examples just, wow.
Give me one. Give me one of those companies.
This happened to be a software company, and they were going to do an upgrade, and the sales force just wasn't buying into it. The sales force was not buying into the upgrade, right? I mean, how many times has a sales force been, okay, here's the upgrade, we're going to go out and sell. And when we began walking through all of the previous outcomes being able to achieve with the other upgrade, and then just like you said, the derivatives that go all the way through, suddenly the sales force said, wow, this is going to be big because it really builds on what we already achieved. Yeah. See, so I mean, it's a great exercise. It's a terrific exercise for any salesperson to take themselves through. And sales manager, take your team through it in a sales meeting.
By the way, that was a great sales strategy right there. And I'm sure you positioned it this way that it already builds on what you've already done.
There you go.
That was real subtle the way Mark said that. Well, I'm just telling you, that's powerful. That's strong.
Think about this, because what we had done was we took the previous one and we looked at the outcomes, the derivatives, and said, this is just going to build on that and allow it to go even further. But see, if we had not known and really studied the previous outcomes, the sales force never would have bought into it, to the newest upgrade.
Yeah, it's amazing. So in your book, A Mind for Sales, walk the audience through, what's in the book and then what was the motivation for writing it?
The motivation for writing it came down to one very simple thing. I wrote the book High Profit Selling. That was my first book, really about how to maximize price. Then people said, well, that's great, but I can't prospect. So then I wrote High Profit Prospecting, which is a prescriptive book, kind of geared more for the longer sale, more complex sale. And then people, oh, that's great. But then people said, man, you gave me all the scripts, you gave me everything because it's all in the book. They didn't have the motivation. So that's when I wrote A Mind for Sales, which really is a little bit my journey in sales. This is where I talk about my college days when I was not going to go into sales and how I didn't want to go into sales, but I wound up into it and how I found I love sales. So I walk you through, how do you frame yourself? How do you frame the day? How do you set up the day? I talk about in the group the value of your three most valuable assets. It's your time, your mind, and your network. And I have a chapter dedicated to each one. On your time, I have a chapter dedicated to your mind. I have a chapter dedicated to your network. I take network and I break it down into several different tiers in terms of different levels of people that you need to have in each one of your levels. I also talk in there about your goals. And one of the things I challenge people is, what's your 25-year goal? Now, salespeople don't normally, they just want to get to the end of the quarter, the end of the month. I'm saying as a salesperson, what's your 25-year goal? Because if you are not professionally, mentally growing, your customers will pick up on it very quickly. You see, I want every salesperson to have a hunger to learn every day. Every day they're learning. You know what's interesting? When you're out there with a hunger to learn, and I know you are, you do this all the time. You do this well because you're a master at saying, what can I pick up? What ideas can I pick up? Your customers pick up on it. And what does it do? It feeds the machine. Feeds you.
I agree. By the way, I just love that last part. It feeds the client, feeds the machine, but it feeds you, because part of that is growing. You know, you mentioned something. I mean, we're all reluctant salespeople. So if you listen to this saying, I'm not a natural salesperson, welcome to the club. You know, I think if my high school friends, when they see me today, are like, what happened to the introvert we always knew?
And I was like, bingo. I know you got a degree in electrical engineering. I mean, yep. you are the smartest kid in the room. That's why I like hanging out with you, because I always like to hang out in the room where I'm not the smartest person. With you, I don't have to worry about that.
I got a 2.63, man. I barely got through college, man. I was really fighting. I clawed my way through college. But
hey, I made the upper half of my class possible. I'm just going to leave it at that, okay?
When you were writing the book, A Mind for Sales, you know, what was you know, like an epiphany that you had? You know how sometimes we, as authors, we have ideas in our heads, but when we write, as you're writing, you're like, oh, I see something I didn't see before. Anything like that?
Yeah. The epiphany was, let me come out. Let my personality. I've had more people say, as they read the book, man, I felt like I was sitting right next to you. You were reading me the book. I just felt, well, I did do the, no, I felt that because I tell so many personal stories, and as a result, they said, I connected with you. I must get a phone call or an email every day from somebody. And that was an epiphany. Then I said, we can expose a lot more of ourselves in sales.
I agree with that, Mark. That's a really good point, because if you're a salesperson struggling, a lot of times we're struggling because we're trying to implement somebody else's strategy, somebody else's way, and do it using somebody else's method. And it isn't until, I always say, the toughest road to success is the road back to you.
Oh,
and by that I mean is that, well, you know what I mean. It's like you gotta, as you say, you let some of yourself out, and let all yourself out, and sell the way you sell. Be a professional, of course, but sell the way you sell and feel natural about it. And so as you went through you started. By the way, was that scary?
Yeah, it was. It wasn't natural. It was. I had hired a new assistant, and she was the one who pushed me in that direction. And I was really uncomfortable, because I'm just not one to run around and brag on. To me, that just, again, my mom always told me, don't brag about yourself. Mm-hmm. And no, it's not a brag, but I would tell some of the challenges I had, some of the issues I had, and Yeah, it was hard. It was hard kind of exposing some of that. It was funny. My own kids read the intro in the first couple chapters and they said, "Dad, you really did that in college?" It's like, because they had not heard some of those stories. So,
oh, that's so cool. That's cool. It's funny how, because I had this moment, I think it was like 2005 or something, where I changed my presentation style because I was doing it somebody else's way. And I remember doing the event and it was so scary. Because I was about to launch my way, and the feedback was just phenomenal because it felt more authentic to the audience. And so I just really, Mark and I want to drive that point home. You have to be your authentic self. Be a professional. Layer something on top of that, Mark.
Well, because it allows you to be more confident. And when you're more confident, you're willing to ask deeper questions. You're willing to have a more meaningful conversation. Anytime I'm trying to do something else, I'm not in my own skin. I'm stressed out. Again, like you said, but when you're you, it's amazing how comfortable you are. It's amazing how relaxed you are. You hear better. You listen so much better. Which, what does that allow you to do? It allows you to ask better questions. And because you're being you, now, unless you're the weird aunt or the crazy uncle, we're all okay. Now, I see two people watching this right now. I need to call you afterwards. I'll reach out to you later. But anyway, the whole deal here is that the other person picks up on it. It's amazing. I'll have people call me and, and they're calling, they're inquiring about something. And I go, man, this is a great, yeah. My objective is to make you feel comfortable on the phone as fast as possible.
And you can't do that if you're uncomfortable. That's what I like what you just said. But it's so, I know it's intuitively obvious, but we struggle with that because, we got these scripts in our head, these scripts of what we should and should not do. Like your parents telling you, don't brag on yourself, right? My favorite one is, don't interrupt adults while they're talking. Well, that's sales. You know what I mean? And so the thing is, what happens is we have all these scripts and it's hard to delete them because that's what you're doing. When you go back to your authentic self, you're basically negating the script. A lot of it. You
are just being you and letting your personality come through. Now, you got to put boundaries on it. Let's do it with integrity. Let's do it with moral values and so forth. But again, we don't have to talk about that to any of the listeners here. You get that already. But what I'm saying,
by the way, I'm saying no. We have to remind people, Mark. I think it's, the reason I asked you about, and I'm glad you said that was one of the big epiphanies from the book, is that you let go. Because I think that is one of the biggest obstacles to success in general. By the way, when I say success, let me define it. In sales, it's the ability to have these authentic conversations. And you laid out that whole connective tissue. When you're yourself, you're more confident. When you're more confident, you ask more questions. You're more curious. You feel good about yourself. The other person feels good. There's that whole connection right there.
Without a doubt. I think it's the reason you and I click. Like we're having this conversation and we already said beforehand, man, we could talk for hours. And yeah, we can. Because again, we're very comfortable with each other. And we respect each other, but we know that, hey, you know what? I want to try to learn. I want to, every time I talk with you, I want to try to learn something. I'm going to try. And there's a level of sales that goes beyond the transaction. And that's what we're trying to get. My whole objective is I want to earn the right, the privilege, honor, and respect to be able to meet with anybody I talk to again. That's my whole goal. My objective is to be one of the better parts of their day. I don't want to be their best part. I'll leave that for their spouse, their significant other, their kids, whatever. But if I can be one of the better parts of each person's day when I have a conversation, I've done my job. I've done my job.
I love what you said. That's a beautiful quote, actually. That there's a level of sales that goes beyond the sale. That's a deep phrase. That's a deep phrase. I love that phrase.
It is a deep phrase because here's the whole thing. The only good sale is one that leads to the next sale. That's what our goal is. And we don't close sales. We open relationships. I hate the word closing sales. We open relationships. And my objective is I never want to take any type of a relationship and not build on. Now, believe me, I've stumbled and fallen over more relationships than you'll ever care to imagine. We've all made mistakes. And you pick yourself up and you carry on. But here's the whole thing. we have to realize that at the end of the day, and I talk about it in my book, I talk about a couple of individuals who influenced my life significantly. 30, 40 years later, I still, when I get into a situation, I will think back as to what they would do. You know what? One of those people was Phil Groff. Phil Groff was the manager of the first McDonald's I worked at. Man, I was 16 years of age going to work at a McDonald's. Now, Phil
wait a minute. Was this before the beef?
This was two all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. Okay. Yeah.
No. Was it before your beef job? The first one?
Yes. Oh yeah. I was 16 years of age. Yeah. Okay. 16 years of age. And Phil had a level, he was teaching me things about leadership and communication and organization skills that I'd never been exposed to. Now, he wasn't knowledgeable. Oh, I got to train this guy up. No, he was just doing his job. What's interesting is when I was in college, I had the privilege of managing the second highest volume McDonald's in the world. In the world. Now, Phil didn't train me for that. I just happened to fall into it. But think about this. If Phil had not done what he did, I would never have had the foundation to do what I was doing.
What was one thing that Phil did that still resonates with you or just you think about once in a while?
He always had the ability to listen. Listen. Regardless of the situation, he listened and he remained calm. There was a certain cerebralness about him. And 16-year-old kids, you can be a lot of drama. He just remained calm and he listened. But what did he do? It allowed him to connect. And his organizational skills, his time management skills, his ability to just make things happen and subconsciously motivate people to do more. Wow. He was a guy you wanted to hang out with.
You know, it's interesting when you talk about, the calm cerebral part, because as we get older, we know that getting emotional does no good, especially as a leader. Being more cerebral allows you to calm that part, that reptilian brain down so you can actually think, cognitively be aware of what's going on. And that allows you to ask better questions and drill down to the root. And this is for the millennials or anybody younger than the millennials, because millennials are almost like 30, 40s now. But it's like, that's the toughest skill to learn is to calm down. Let's walk through it.
Right. The sun will still, I used to have this, I used to have an expression. When people would come to me, when I was in my corporate role, people would come to me with challenges and problems and so forth. I go, hey, hold it. Nothing we do here today is going to change the course of mankind tomorrow. Just relax.
Yeah.
I mean, Warren Buffett has a great line. He says, there's no need to swing at a pitch until the ball's over the plate.
That's right. I had a guy, I got to tell you, I had a moment. You know how sometimes it's a moment that just passes by, and at the moment it doesn't mean anything. But upon reflection later on, you go, oh, that's what he meant. And I remember I was just first job out of college. I was running basically down the hallway because I had to do something. I forgot what the task was. And there comes this guy strolling, older guy. His name was Leroy Albrecht. Still remember his name. Leroy says, why are you rushing, Victor? As I was running by. He said, I got to get this done. He goes, never rush. And he just kept strolling. And I'm like, like, you idiot. Leave me alone. I got to get this done. And it isn't until later in my life that I go, I understand I'm going to call that Leroy's rule from now on. Never rush. Always walk. Says just got to walk it, Victor. And what he was saying is that, this whole speeding to get something done, sometimes it's all about just walk it to the corner. You don't have to run to the corner. Just walk it to the corner. Talk to me about patience in this game?
Patience is so critical, especially when it comes to negotiating, especially when it comes to the price. I mean, it's amazing. We get into this panic mode. Oh, I'm not getting the response I want, like right now, this instant out of a customer. So what do? I offer a discount. I go and say something stupid. Just calm down. Just relax.
As you say, we're not going to change the world. We're not going to change the course of mankind. And I think if you have that relaxed attitude, it allows you to manage your mental stress for the day better.
Without a doubt, because now what you're doing is, if you believe in the outcome you can create for the customer, it may just come and be a little more time required for the customer to understand that outcome, because they're not thinking at the same level you are. They're not thinking at the same speed. Just relax.
Just chill.
Chill.
Mark, We got to wrap this up, brother, man. We got to wrap this up. We can keep going on, but let the folks know why they should buy your book. I'm going to highly recommend it because I've read it. A Mind for Sales. Why should they buy this book? Why? Who needs this book, Mark?
Well, who needs it is because it's going to change your mindset. You know, I came out with this book the end of March, which was right as the pandemic was getting going. And it really, I mean, people said, how did you write the book so quickly for the pandemic? And I go, well, I'd written it the year before. Because it changes your mindset as to how you look at sales. And right now, more than ever, sales is under assault because it's changed. It's so much harder to get out and physically meet people and trade shows and conferences and so forth. So we're doing more over Zoom and so forth and all these challenges. And it plays with your mind. And what I tell you is this, hey, you got to be in the game for the long game. Too many people, especially right now in a pandemic, what they're doing is they're playing the short game. And when you play the short game, you know what you're doing? You got a shovel and you're digging a hole. Play the long game. Change it from a shovel to a hoe. Don't dig the hole, till the field. That's how your business is going to be better off.
That Nebraska part of you just came out again. That's what
that
it
was.
was.
That was totally off the wall. That was totally random. That's the first time I've ever said that one.
Mark, where can they find out more information about you?
Well, hey, the website is thesaleshunter.com. Yes, that's my real last name. I know people always ask, what was your name before you? No, thesaleshunter.com. The book you can buy on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, bookstores, wherever fine books are sold.
There you go. Mark, I want to thank you for being on the Sales Influence podcast. For my listeners and viewers, please leave me some feedback on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, wherever you find me. And when you get a chance, go to thesaleshunter.com. And after you do that, check out the Sales Velocity Academy. You know what the deal is. Over 50 courses, 500 videos. If you want to increase your sales velocity, get your mind right with Mark, get your sales right with me, and that combination is win-win. And on that note, this is Victor Antonio, always reminding you, selling ain't hard when you know how. Take care.